Welcome to the first of the 2021 Lunch and Learn series. This event is brought to you by IVCC's Rho Omega chapter of Phi Theta Kappa International Honor Society. My name is Gracelyn Quessy, and I'm the Student Recruitment Specialist here at IVCC. I'm here today with PTK co-advisor Azeret Loveland.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Azeret Loveland, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Admissions Records and Transfer Services here at IVCC. I should say Illinois Valley Community College because we do have some professionals with us that are out of state. So this networking opportunity is a chance for students here at IVCC and at the high school level, and really anyone who has an interest in this area to check this out, explore the industry, and really every week to learn a new different career route. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. If you are joining us, if you're not speaking, if you could mute yourself, and then feel free to use the chat feature to submit any questions you might have. And then just know that this session is being recorded so that we can share with anyone that wasn't able to make it with us over lunch. Oh, we enforced the mute thing and we don't have Graceland. We'll have to unmute you.
Okay, sorry guys, thank you. So this is all about real world preparation. We think that this is very valuable because I don't know, who knows, today maybe this is the day when you hear about your future career. You listen to someone talk and you're like, that's exactly what I want to do. So we're going to be covering quite a bit of ground. So let me hand it off to our student moderator, PTK Vice President for Leadership, Skylar Artwood.
Hello, panelists. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to speak today at PTK's Healthcare Careers Lunch and Learn. Can each of our guests please share your name, title, and the organization you work for?
Hi, I'm Joan Fernandez, and I am a nurse at Illinois Valley Community Hospital that has recently merged with St. Margaret's Hospital in Spring Valley, and now we are called St. Margaret's Health in Peru.
My name's Pam Brewery. I am a resident physician specializing in emergency medicine, working at Marietta Memorial Hospital in Marietta, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
I'm Nick Fish. I'm the program coordinator for EMS at Illinois Valley Community College.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Brewer. I'm a public health nurse for the County of San Diego Public Health Services Epidemiology Program.
She's also my sister.
Yay!
And I'm also Graceland's sister, younger sister.
Okay, Skylar, did you want to take off with the first question?
Can you share a little bit about what a typical workday looks like for you?
Well, for me, I am doing community outreach work. So we are planning events. We just had a call from a company that would like us to come and do CPR and first aid for their workers. So we are updating our American Heart Association CPR classes so we can make sure we're giving them the most up-to-date things. We're also planning ahead now that hopefully COVID will be past us a little bit. So we are hoping to do some babysitting classes, Mom, My Body's Changing classes, all kinds of educational screenings. We have continued through this time to do cholesterol checks on people every month if they want to, just a finger stick, and also A1C screenings, which are checking diabetics for their A1C level. So, so we continue to look for ways to educate the public to keep them healthy, especially now during COVID when people feel like they can't actually get out to their doctor and see very much. So, so gathering all my supplies, getting out there, teaching people, educating people, screening people, And now one of our important jobs now is giving the COVID vaccine. So really educating people, trying to get them in there, use every single dose up. It's like liquid gold. We don't want to waste a drop. So, and it's, in general, you have to be flexible with the hours. So I work days, nights, evenings, sometimes weekends. So just wherever the need is, you need to reach people when they can come to see you. So if it's after their workday, that's what you do. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you so much. And this is totally something that we should have implemented, but we could do some sort of order. This is our first time around. So then we started with Joan. Next up, can we hear from Pam?
Certainly. So I work in the emergency department, so it's open 24/7. As resident physicians and attending physicians, we have scheduled shifts. So our shifts are usually 10 hours long. There are some areas that have 12-hour long shifts or 8-hour long shifts, but our hospital, we have 10-hour shifts. So we come in and just see patients all day long throughout our shift. During that process, we see anything and everything that comes in. So things like we can see chest pain and belly pain, traumas that come in, people in respiratory distress, simple things like cuts or lacerations, kind of the gamut of things, which is what kind of drew me to emergency medicine, is that you get to see a whole bunch of different things. And during the day, we work with all of our nurses, the EMS crews, the hospital medicine team that we admit to. So it's a busy day, but they're usually busy days, but pretty fun and interesting.
Thank you. Then we'll have Nick go and then Cheryl.
So for EMS, generally it's a 24-hour shift. So you work for 24 hours. So 6, 7 a.m. you're starting work, get in, make sure everything's on your vehicle, ready to go. Then it's kind of general chores, making sure the station's clean, washing the ambulance, fire truck, whatever the case may be. And then usually there's some training, daily chores around the station that they want you to do, like maintenance and things along those lines. Any point in time, though, you can have a call. Everything from like citizen assist, where it's, they need help getting up off the floor, or their carbon monoxide alarms going off, to heart attack or cardiac arrest or something like that, where we're going to take the patient to the hospital. Where most people go home at 4 o'clock, we're there until 7 the next morning. So dinner, I was told early on that EMS stands for earn money sleeping, and hopefully that's true. But just like other parts of our day, at any point in time, we could have a call. So 2 a.m. Or 2 p.m.
And Cheryl, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I'll go ahead and go next. So again, I'm a public health nurse with the epidemiology program. And if you're not familiar with what epidemiology is the study of the distribution and determinants of health-related events in the population. So essentially, who's getting sick, why, and what can we do about it? The vast majority of my workday is in an office setting. My work has taken me to a few different settings. However, sometimes we'll be in the clinic, sometimes we'll give out vaccines, sometimes we'll do specimen collections, which is what I was doing this time last week, COVID nasal swabs. So the majority of my job is to follow up on reportable communicable diseases, initiate public health actions to kind of protect the public. So spinach recalls, frozen berry recalls. That is something that happens, that is discovered through public health investigations. We also do high-level public health actions. For example, I recently helped with a suspect botulism case and had to help coordinate antitoxin delivery from LA CDC quarantine station to San Diego. So it really runs the gamut of providing health education to tracking down antitoxin. And the majority of my day is in the office setting. I'm not sure if I said that already. Today happens to be my teleworking day.
So it feels like a common theme between all of you guys is also education. Healthcare is so important, but spreading knowledge about, things to be aware of and everything, whether it be during an active pandemic or just in off times, educating everybody. Healthcare is something that doesn't sleep. And I know that too, from my family and everything. And I feel like it's definitely something that's just, you never turn it off. It's always something, it's always relevant. There's always something going on. Scala, did you want to go ahead and ask the next question?
What made you decide on your respective fields, and what did your college path look like?
Joan, did you want to start us off again?
I would be glad to. Yeah, I didn't want to.
Thank you. No, thank you so much.
So I went to Bradley University, which is a 4-year college, and I became a nurse with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing. And I thought I wanted to be a midwife. So I thought I wanted to deliver babies, but they told me to first get a year experience doing medical surgical work in a hospital was a nice, good foundation for that. So I did. I worked at St. John's Hospital in Springfield, Illinois, on a floor that had a lot of urology patients, took care of a lot of guys with prostate problems. And so they made half the floor, they decided to make the half the floor an oncology floor working with cancer patients. And I thought, well, and it was free training and it was something new to try. And so that started my oncology career working with cancer patients. At that time, we used to bring everybody in and give them their chemotherapy, and they spent a lot of time in the hospital. But now we know that we give them chemotherapy in the office. And so I learned a lot. And then I moved to Kansas City, Missouri, and lived there for 10 years. And I had a unique setting. I worked in a clinic, a teaching hospital too, and a public hospital. It was great. Worked in an oncology clinic, worked on their floors. And then I went to patients' homes and taught them how to do IV therapy at home, like antibiotics. And we even hooked up chemotherapy, let it run for a couple of days, and came and took it off. That was supposed to be easier for side effects for them. So then I was an oncology nurse and also an IV therapy nurse specialist. Lots of fun going to patients' homes, lots of cool new technology, got to work with teaching patients. Again, it goes back to that teaching. You're always trying to teach them to take care of themselves, to know what's going on with them, and also administering their own medication when it was possible. So I never did really get to deliver babies, but I got to do a lot of fun things. When I moved here back to my hometown area in Peru, Illinois, I did a lot of the same thing, did the IV therapy and home care. And then there was just a lot of fun need to do community outreach nursing to make the public healthier, educate them, make them feel like they can be in charge of their own health, and make sure they're keeping track of things. So here I am.
I think I'm gonna go next, right?
Yes, thank you so much, Pam.
So I, from a young age, knew I wanted to do medicine, but I have kind of taken a long and different path to becoming a doctor. The things that drew me to medicine originally and wanting to be a doctor is I love the fact that medicine is always changing, always evolving. You're always learning new things. The things I like about specifically to being a physician are the fact that you really are taking ownership of these patients. You're doing a lot of the procedures, you're finding the diagnosis, and just kind of the puzzles of being a patient presents. Like I said, kind of took a long path to get here. I did undergrad the first time, and like probably many people struggled with some the basic classes because in medicine you have to have a lot of things like chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, and I didn't do too well in my first core classes. Knew that one of the reasons that I wanted to do medicine is I kind of want to help people, make a difference in my community. Tried doing things like working in nonprofits, but ultimately decided that medicine kind of was my true calling. Went back to school to kind of revamp those courses, biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, things like that. Took MCATs and then applied to medical school. After 3 attempts of applying to med school, I got in and I have 4 years of med school, and now I am in residency.
So for me, it was, I started off on the local fire department as a volunteer, primarily because that's what my dad was doing. And I was a senior in high school when I started doing that. The college there was actually taught at the firehouse. We had a couple instructors that were part-time faculty and that were also worked for the fire department. So they did a lot of the teaching there. They needed people to help out on the EMS side of things, and it was something I didn't think I would enjoy initially, and really didn't want to take care of sick people and vomiting and all that stuff. But a friend of mine convinced me to take the EMT class and try it out, and it ended up being something that I kind of enjoyed doing. And then I found out you could get paid to do it, and somebody would pay you to work, regular job, and that would be all you have to do. So I went back to school and took the paramedic program. I worked full time for 8 years in the EMS field before I started teaching.
And I think I'm next. Let's see. What made me decide in my field and what did my college path look like? So essentially, I'd always been interested in nursing, but it was such an impacted field to go into. So in my undergrad degree, I pursued a degree in public health policy and a minor in educational studies with the intention of becoming either a sexual health educator, working in student health education, or maybe a wellness or health education center on a college campus. However, during the course of that major of public health policy, I took an epidemiology class and loved it. All the crunching numbers to figure out kind of who done it in the culprit of an illness outbreak. So I did pursue a master in public health, and through that got to work on a social epidemiology research project for the health determinants of LGBT youth. And through that, though, I kind of still had the interest in nursing. So I took nursing prerequisites stacked with my grad school nursing classes. I was very transparent with my research boss, just that this is what I was planning to do. So she understood if I had to leave the office right at 5 to go to my prereq classes. Eventually was able to apply to nursing school, finished nursing school, and this public health nursing job is actually my first job in nursing. I did go to Philadelphia for nursing school, was initially licensed as an RN in Philadelphia, and then had to go through the process of getting licensed in California. So it was quite a process to get here, but I'm very glad to be able to kind of mesh all of my interests in public health, education, and nursing and epidemiology with this job that I currently have.
I know I always thought that she was going to be a career student, and and I'm so glad that she was able to find something that tied together everything, all the passions and everything that she enjoyed studying. Skylar, did you want to move on to the next question?
But that's the real fun of nursing, is there are so many avenues, or medicine in general, so many avenues and different venues to work in, not just in the hospital.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
really are.
We've got 3 nurses just on this event, and the wealth of experiences you all have between you 3 is just, it's amazing. And that's not even scratching the surface.
Yeah, those are truly amazing responses. what do you wish you would have known before starting on your career trajectories? If you were to do it again, what would you change?
I probably would have tried a couple other areas of nursing, life flight and emergency room. It's just when you're younger and you have that, maybe you don't have a family, you spend a lot of time and do a lot of really cool things like that. I guess that was one of the things that I wish I would have tried would be emergency medicine or emergency nursing. I guess I would have kind of hung out with Nick a little bit more. So, but in general, to prepare for going to school, though, I mean, if they have 4 years of math, 4 years of science, and 4 years of English, I think that is solid prep for going on to, in medicine. I think that helps. So certainly the science helps, the math helps because we use math all the time, and the English helps because if we can't communicate what we're doing with our colleagues and with our patients, I think that's probably the best prep I tell high school students to do, is to get a solid foundation. And then when you get there, so hopefully your freshman year in college is some of the review of some of the stuff you've already had in high school.
Joan, can we have you work on healthcare recruiting with us too? That was such a great answer.
Sure.
Thank you.
I
And Nick,
tell
if you wanna- oh, sorry.
The
Go
only
ahead.
other thing I will do, I tell people the reason why I went into nursing is because I don't like to get up in the morning. So obviously my first job was 3 to 11, the best shift ever. So you work out in the morning, you sleep late, you go to work, and then you get off. You know, there's other people, young people that you're working with, you have a beer and you go home. Life is good.
That's good advice, is also figuring out your, what kind of life you want out of it, and choosing your career around when you want to be awake and when the things that you want to be part of are going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one thing I feel like one thing I didn't think about, but now I'm thinking about is the fact that Jen just mentioned of medicine can really be any kind of hours. Like you can really make your career whatever you want, like whatever works best for you. And I also, one thing I wish I would have done more of was researching other professions in terms of, or specialties in terms of medicine. I pretty much knew I wanted to do emergency medicine. I was a EM scribe, an emergency department scribe before med school. So kind of like felt home in the departments. But I wish I would have researched other specialties, because there's some specialties having been through med school now and in residency that I'm like, those would have been probably some cool ones. Like there's a PMNR, pain medicine and rehabilitation, I think, or physical medicine and rehabilitation, where you get to do a lot of like physical medicine, and it's a really fun field. Still think I would have chosen emergency medicine, but just wish I would have explored other specialties. And if I were to do it all over again, I don't know if I would change much. Maybe, like I said, just researching more specialties. But yeah, having a good foundation, and yeah.
So I think one of the things that is available today that wasn't available when I was in high school was the career centers, and really the fact that you get involved in EMS early on. And I guess that would be the one thing I wish I would have known before starting this, was that that program would have been available, because EMS is definitely a younger person's career. It takes a lot of out of you physically, as well as mentally. So if I was going to do anything over again, that would be I'd start earlier, and I would have stayed in the field longer. I just came out of the field maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Still kind of would like to go back out there and run EMS, but then they talk about temperatures like this weekend where it's going to be sub-zero, and I'm pretty happy being inside all the time.
Nick, would you say something about that Explorers Club, since you brought, is that something that younger people can do?
It is. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know Peru Ambulance offers an Explorer program, which I believe, and I hope I'm not misspeaking here, but I believe it's a program through the Boy Scouts, and it is. I have to talk to Brent. It's a program where students, I want to say in like 13 to 18, can
Right,
kind of
right.
participate and hang around the station. They get to go on calls. They're not licensed, so they can't really participate in the medical care, but they kind of get a feeling for the profession in general. And that's kind of an orientation.
Great way to, like Pam was saying, to explore options and seeing and being part of it, rather than, oh, I'm an EMT. Oh, I didn't really like,
Yeah.
it's not what I thought it was going to be. So yeah, the Explorer program is, kind of like a scouting thing on its own offshoot, but it is a nice program. And if your area offers that, it's a nice way to kind of test out the waters.
And I'll go ahead and answer the question. What do you wish you had known before starting on this career trajectory? So kind of like everyone had mentioned, to do the research, I did not know public health nurses and epidemiology existed. I didn't really know about the existence of epidemiology until my, I think, second year of undergrad when I switched majors. So do the research, see what actually exists out there, and also that it is worth it to suffer through those classes, kind of what Pam had said, anatomy, physiology, microbiology, chemistry. It was so intimidating to look at the schedules as a 18, 19, 20-year-old, all the classes, people just failed out of them, and it scared me. I didn't want to fail a class, but I entered them as a 25, 26-year-old. I was sitting with 18-year-olds in that class, and we were all suffering together. You have to do the memorizing. I spent Saturdays from 8 to 5 p.m. in the local library just studying. It was not fun, but you grin and bear it, and it is so worth it in the end, especially if you can pass the first time around.
I do remember you disappearing for about a year during your accelerated nursing program. So that's very accurate information that you just gave. Thank you for sharing about that. And Skylar, did you want to go on with the next question?
What do you advise students who want to pursue your fields in terms of college classes or ways to gain experience out in the community?
Wow, we've already kind of talked about those. So the Explorer program for EMS. For nursing, they can be a volunteer at the hospital, or they can even work. We are lucky at our local high school. All the high schools kind of feed into an area career center, and they can, their junior year in high school, take classes, and they can become a CNA at the end of their year if they take the test and want to pass. So they could work as a certified, that's a nursing assistant, certified nursing assistant. And they can work in the nursing homes, they can work in the hospitals, they can work in the doctor's offices. So that's a great place to see and just participate even with their families. My sister was so nice. She let me come and see the birth of one of her children, and it really gave me a feel for what nursing could do, what nurse midwives would do, nurse anesthetists would do. So, and go to any of those offerings. We also, for sophomores in high school at the local high school, they do offer career visits. And so you can maybe observe in the emergency room or observe in the doctor's office to get a feel for that. So the more you see out there, the better you get a sense of what that profession is actually going to do. So, and talk to people.
Yeah, thank you guys. We did cover pretty much a lot of those ways and outlets that you could get involved and things to study. So in the interest of time, I know we want to cover more. We're going to move on to the next question. And Skylar, did you want to read it off? Oh, Did you want to unmute yourself real quick?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
What is a reasonable career path in your field right now? What are some entry-level positions students will be looking at in the job market?
Well, just really briefly here, we have an entry level for us would be a nursing position, or if you were working through school to be a CNA, certified nursing assistant, or even an CMA, which is a certified medical assistant working in an office. But there are jobs available for nursing. There are a lot of jobs available and lots of variety. So we have openings, I know, at our hospital.
I feel like there's always openings for nurses. And especially, I know here there's opening for nurses where they're like offering like sign-on bonuses. But in terms of like in physicians, it's not really like an entry level, but to kind of get started and exposed to medicine, there are things like technicians, we call and scribes, especially if you're interested in like emergency medicine or really any kind of medicine. There's a lot of different physicians who employ scribes nowadays, where you can kind of learn the documentation, learn how the flow works for the day, and how a day typically goes, and kind of get a big leg up on the documentation portion of medicine, because I feel like medicine is all documentation nowadays. But I feel like, yeah, those are kind of like the easy starter ways to get into a career for medical school, and then go from there.
Additionally, for kind of the public health epidemiology side of things, there's phlebotomy, community health specialists, disease control and investigations. There is a title called communicable disease investigators, which are usually non-nurses. I think some of them are nurses, but usually non-nurses that make those calls for public health action for other communicable diseases such as tuberculosis, STD, some other entry level.
Those are definitely good points to touch on. Phlebotomy, I know working as a student recruitment specialist here at IVCC, at least, since the pandemic started, we've had such an influx of people interested in going into phlebotomy or becoming a CNA and taking those courses. There's jobs everywhere, and the need for them it's only going to get more in demand, and healthcare in general. So it's definitely a secure job market, and there's always going to be a spot for you if you're interested in it.
I did want to say, though, that as an entry-level person, medicine is 24 hours a day, so don't be discouraged. It might be the night shift that you start off on, but you'll work your way up. It'll be fine.
Yes, it's absolutely important to be flexible too. I know that's something that some people might get used to. Like if you're like, I just only function if I sleep in or anything. Flexibility is so important in this field, as well as a lot of any other career field if you're looking to secure a position somewhere. So Skylar, I think we can move on to the next question. And just for those who are joining us today, if you have any questions you'd like to ask our professionals, please go ahead and write in the chat and we can read them out. We're towards the end of what we had planned out, and we can cover a little bit more. We also want to touch base to see if the professionals have any last bits of advice for people looking to get into their field. But if you have any questions at all, please feel free to chat something in. And Skylar, go ahead and take it away.
As students, a lot of us like to imagine that we won't have to study or continue educating ourselves after we graduate. How do you continue to advance your career or stay up to date with new information?
Well, I think as a professional, you are getting paid to maintain your education. We always have the benefit at the hospital. There's often programs for us where they educate us on new equipment, new technology, new information, but we still really have to take be responsible for our own education. It's fun to I get journals at home. You read, you read an article every day or two or whatever, or once a month you read through your magazine. You can do journal clubs where you discuss something, and always be up for working on a new project or on a new thing. I'm on the COVID team. So things with COVID and studies change all the time and constantly. If you want to go into a career that never changes and you don't have to add new things, I used to say medicine's not for you, but I'm not sure what career you would go into that you wouldn't have to constantly educate yourself about what's coming down the pike and making sure that you're current. So.
In terms of for like physicians in residency, at least once a week we have we call it didactics or conference, where we spend 4 to 5 hours learning and reviewing new things. Once a month we have journal club where we read the latest journal articles on a given topic. And then after we leave residency, you have to complete so many CMEs or continuing medical education credits per year. And so there's a lot of easy ways to complete it. You can go to conferences, you can do online courses, read articles, do little courses. There's a lot of different options to get those credits in. And there's some great podcast resources that kind of keep you up to date with the latest information. So you can kind of read or listen to that as you're like going for a walk or just getting ready for work, driving into work. So there's like a lot of great options. I really like the podcast option because it doesn't really take a lot of effort on my part, but it's just kind of as I'm doing my day-to-day activities, I can kind of stay updated on the new developments.
So we have a state requirement of 25 hours every year for continuing education, kind of similar to Pam. And generally it's offered on a monthly basis at the local departments. Usually during the day, there's some downtime. So that's a great time to pick up an article or read something. Usually at the beginning of the day with the shift briefing, we'll go through one of the policies or procedures and some of the standing medical orders and kind of just focus on that particular topic for the day.
Yep, and just to expand on kind of what Joan, Pam, and Nick have all said, with nursing, we do have our CEs that we have to turn in with our license renewals. And as Joan had mentioned, we're paid for the vast majority of those if they're offered through a conference or a presentation. So, for example, we recently had a flu summit where we were updated on the recent flu vaccines and vaccine recommendations, which we got for, we had to apply and provide our license number to and go to the whole thing, as well as complete an evaluation to officially get that CE. Other than that, just be open to new opportunities of learning, be curious. I am that person that will look at the footnotes and will read the academic article, just my research background. I love reading the studies behind it. So see what you're most interested in and read up on it.
Thank you so much. So we do have a couple questions coming in from the chat. We have, what natural abilities or interests are needed for a career in nursing? And also for nursing, are employers willing to pay for continued education?
Money has gotten tight over the years. So yes, your healthcare employers are willing to pay for some of those or bring some of those in. But I think you have to also be open if they're not going to pay for it and it's something you really want to learn about. Go to that conference. That's the thing that really gives you that shot in the arm, that enthusiasm. Once you go to a conference and learn some new things and you're excited to apply those to the medicine that you're doing at the time, I think that kind of keeps you going. And there's lots of free CEUs to go to do now too. So it's getting easier and easier.
Yeah, and there's also a way to join like nursing associations where they will kind of provide email blasts of free CEs. If you don't get them all through work, paid opportunities, there's also a way to pay for courses to get those CEs, because you do need them to get your license renewals.
And since we do have several nurses on this call, what natural abilities or interests are needed for career nursing?
Well, I think you have to want to help people. I feel like everybody pretty much said you want to help people through this. You want to make them feel as good as they can, not be scared, not be nervous. One of the reasons why I went into nursing probably is because I came from a family, they were very nervous about going to the doctor, about telling anybody that they had a problem because they were scared. And so I think you're trying to, you're trying to take that nervousness and scaredness out by educating them that what we can do, walk them through the process. And so I do think and also that ability to try and make people feel as comfortable as possible in that situation. So I think the first year in nursing for me, working with men and their prostates and surgery and things like that, you're trying to make people comfortable in situations that are really uncomfortable for them.
Yeah, I kind of to build up on that, I believe nurses all have kind of, and in general, everyone has different strengths. So when applied to nursing, it could be if you're in an acute care setting, you really need to have that attention to detail when assessing a patient. When to alert a doctor, when to call a code, or when something is if someone's usual is different from the norm. You have to know that about your case, your patient, excuse me. Kind of in my role, I provide a lot of health education. So being comfortable about teaching, knowing your material, knowing what to teach and when. And yeah, I would say different strengths and your willingness to teach, having empathy, putting yourself in the patient's shoes. I was recently talking to a nurse that my cubicle neighbor has been a pediatric nurse for just decades, and she had mentioned, the new nurses these days will go into a patient room, put on gloves, and do their assessments. But her argument is that you really need to have that hands-on thing, which is lost these days. So, to be willing to lend that helping hand, whether it be physically or over the phone, to spend time with the person and give their attention to them.
And we've got another question. Let's see. This is so important because I know part of self-care is taking, you help others with their self-care, but self-care is also something that we got to pay attention with, especially during these days, and you guys know that. How do you keep yourself engaged when you're having an off day, and what do you do for self-care?
I think you can get lost in all the technology. I think a lot of nurses feel like we feel like we're with the computer all the time and not with the person hands-on. And I think that's what is discouraging for us. Although it's good documentation and communication, everybody can see that, but sometimes we feel like we're staring at the computer screen more than we're actually looking at our patients. So I think that's when you go back to your compassion for the patient and just enjoying the conversation with the patient and talking to them. And sometimes as they more relaxed, they share things that are helpful for their medical treatment. So I guess just focus on the patient.
I feel like I agree with kind of focusing on the patient, focusing back on why you're there. I feel like I can't say it any better. So I'll answer more of like for self-care. I have a puppy, and so, well, he's not really a puppy. He's 8 years old or 12 years old. So I play with my puppy. I hang out with my fellow co-residents, kind of get out, do fun activities outside, kind of refresh and reboots. So that way I try and have less off days, because if you're taking care of yourself, I feel you can work better with your, like, staying engaged with your shifts.
So when we're on shift, we're usually working with somebody that we know pretty well, because we spend, every day or every third day usually with that person. So if we're in the middle of having a bad day, or we're with the patient and we're missing something, there's always somebody there to kind of go, hey, what about this, or help us along with that. We have exercise facilities and equipment at the station, which can be a good form of self-care as well. And then because we are so close, after working with each other so often, there's a lot of, I don't want to say, I guess, pranking, joking around going on, to kind of help lighten the mood. And then afterwards, there's shift get-togethers, so cookouts, barbecues, things like that. Just gathering. I think we had one in the middle of winter. It was just like a chili cook-off type thing, where everybody got together and brought a little bit of chili and sat around and just kind of talked as a shift.
In terms of keeping myself engaged in work when I'm having an off day, it's a great question. I'm also like Joan on the COVID team, just doing everything related to COVID on top of everything related to epidemiology. So one of the things I do is I help with COVID call triage. So the general public health care, anyone that calls into the public health department with a COVID question, sometimes we get them through voicemail and they're triaged to us for follow-up. Sometimes we'll listen to the voicemail and they're just angry. They're just shouting and they're demanding a call back. So if, that will definitely throw me off kilter. So what I will do is I'll use the sandwich method, do something fun or light, then make the call, then do something fun or light afterwards. So it's kind of just, you deal with it, get through it, and you have something to look forward to after you finish that. I also will reach out to my coworkers for just saying I might need some extra support today. If you can, I can't take this call right now, please help me with this. Additionally, for self-care, I also have a puppy nearby. Well, she's a 6-year-old puppy. So I'll take her on walks. I also like arts and crafts. I recently got into calligraphy, so it's nice to kind of just zone in on a craft, or watching TV or going on walks with my husband.
Got a few more questions for nursing, and I think that some of these can be answered pretty quickly. Is there good job availability for those who choose nursing? I would think yes, because we've got an influx of people that are wanting to do it.
Yes, there is. There's a lot of jobs in a lot of different areas, that not just traditional jobs in the hospital on the nursing floor. So yeah, it's great.
And how do the opportunities for advancement look like? And how do you advance as a nurse or in your field?
Well, there's always a lot of opportunities for advancement. And when you're on the job, take those opportunities. I mean, sometimes you just have to grab them, or if you want to make your own, if you are interested in a particular area. You can do, so one of our ER nurses is doing the SANE nursing program, the certification. So she can help women who are coming in with sexual assault to gather all the evidence and information and talk to them. So those are some specialty areas. Oncology, if you are interested in that, giving chemotherapy, nurse navigator in oncology, helping the patient navigate through there. The emergency room, OB. I mean, the fun thing is you can stay with a company and keep all of your seniority, but work in all different areas of the hospital. So again, another great reason to go into nursing.
Yeah, and similarly, in our organization, there's public health nurses, there's senior public health nurses, there's public health nurse supervisors, there's public health nurse managers, there's chiefs of certain divisions in our public health services. So there's really room for growth all over. You just have to kind of see what's available. Typically, if you look for the job listings, it'll show the kind of career trajectory, or I forget what they call it, but the kind of different levels. What is the entry level? What is advanced in that position?
Okay, we're gonna round off. Let's see. What is it? This is an interesting question, but what is an advantage and a disadvantage of being in your position, whether you're looking into becoming a physician like Pam, or not just nursing, but any of your positions? Because I know you guys are all kind of in different fields of nursing, or different, or have used your nursing background and found another outlet. That's not the typical clinical the clinical site that most people would envision. I hope that makes sense.
Just really briefly for me, the advantages, I think we've talked about those, the flexibility in all the different areas. The disadvantage right now is if there's not enough nurses where you work, you're a little short-staffed. So I think that you have to, we work on that all the time to make sure we have the right amount of nurses for the right amount of patients. And medicine is not you get what you get comes in the door. One day you might get 10 patients walking in the emergency room and they all have to be admitted. The next day you might get none. So it's that up and down. You have to be open for that. And so I think sometimes that is, and then we're open 24 hours a day at the hospital. So you have to cover it on Christmas and New Year's and Easter and all the holidays. So so that's probably one of the disadvantages, but sometimes those are the most fun times to work, right, Nick?
Absolutely.
And this is Cheryl. I also wanted to add so advantages and disadvantages. Some disadvantages that I can think of right now are kind of what I had alluded to. Sometimes we'll get verbal. I'll get verbal abuse almost on the phone. Just people yelling, saying that you're doing an awful job. I still remember one voicemail where the lady just ended with, "You probably hate your job right now. This is the start of COVID," and just hung up the phone with no callback number. Other times we'll get happier voicemails, and those are a particular advantage. Another disadvantage, my husband's actually an acute care nurse, and he recently, he'll come back home and report being kicked by patients, being spit on by patients. It's a very real thing to be dealing with patients with mental health or behavioral health issues in a hospital setting. So keep that in mind as well if you're going into acute care. And advantages is just all of the different of different things that nurses can go into. During nursing school, I just went from clinical to clinical, thinking, scrub nursing, operation room. This is where I'm going to be forever. And I knew I thought I did not want to go into pediatrics. Then I had my pediatrics clinical. I had a sickle cell patient and said, "This is it. Pediatrics is it. This is where I want to be." Next was the neuro ICU. My first neuro assessment with a stroke patient, heartbreaking, but it was so fascinating to me that I said, I hope one day I work in a neuro ICU. And actually, I'm not in a hospital setting at all these days. And I'm currently loving my job despite the stresses of COVID. So really there might be something out there for you in nursing, whether that's in a hospital, in a clinic, or in an office setting.
And Pam, did you want to touch on that too? Any particular advantages or disadvantages of becoming a physician? I'm sure there's many on both sides, or just being a resident right now.
Well, I feel like a lot of the advantages and disadvantages of being a physician kind of mirror what Joan and Cheryl have already said. You are dealing with a lot of different patients for like in terms of disadvantages where, you're not going to give them the answers that they want. You're not going to give them the medications that they want. They're not going to be happy with the care that they're receiving. So you're going to always have unhappy customers. You're going to be working all different times, especially if you choose a specialty in medicine that involves you working holidays, weekends, nights, things like that. And as a resident, I feel the big disadvantage kind of changes as you're going through residency is, you don't know as much as you thought you did when you came out of med school, and just kind of that growing process of being okay with not being perfect and not being 100% sure of what you're doing or what you're saying, but knowing that you have a good support system of like your attendings and your fellow co-residents to kind of help you along and help you grow and become an attending physician. Advantages are, I think, just like working with people, kind of helping out, solving problems. You kind of get a nice balance of, getting to do a lot of thinking and trying to solve problems, but also getting to do a lot. Like in the emergency department, we are regularly doing things where we are like sewing people back together, putting shoulders and hips back in their sockets. So it's kind of like a nice balance that you get to do a lot of things, but you also get to think and solve those puzzles.
Oh, and also want to kind of piggybacking off that, with all of these problem solving that we do in healthcare, those group projects that you love so much in class, collaboration is a very real thing in healthcare. And, while you may choosing a leader, choosing to be on a team, it's very real. So knowing how to communicate with people is very, very important. So work on your communication now, be open to communication. You may have to actually talk to someone face to face. You may actually have to pick up the phone to collaborate. You can't just chat on everything. So yes, email is a very real part of our lives these days. So just be welcome and open to all the communication.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, one thing that I found especially helpful in like all levels of school was finding a good study group. I mean, you may be competitive with your classmates trying to get the best scores and everything like that. But finding a good study group that will help you work through problems and understand things better. So study groups are very good things.
Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful Lunch and Learn event. Thank you for being the first iteration of our series now that we've had to move virtually. I've learned so much from that. And like, I'm like, man, sign me up for nursing if I could redo this all over again. So thank you again to our panelists today. Thank you also for what you're doing in healthcare, because without you, the world would not be running still. And please join us again next week, Tuesday, February 9th. We're going to have our Lunch and Learn with business careers. And thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Graceland.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.